Good morning and welcome to Business Spotlight, where we share insights, reflections, advice, and pearls of wisdom from local business owners. My name is Ceri James. I'm a business coach and facilitator. And this morning I'd like to welcome Cat Duncan-Rees, founder of Curators of Change. Good morning to you, Cat.
Good morning, Ceri. Nice to be here.
Very good. Let's get straight into the questions, if that's okay, please, Cat. Curators of Change, if you can give us a little bit of background, how long have you been involved in the business and what do you specialise in, please?
Yeah, so founded probably about 4 or 5 years ago as a limited company, but now we're trading as a community interest company. And there are 4 of us who are directors of that. And I suppose our fundamental thing is that we want to work with organisations who are interested in understanding people's lived experience and wanting to do things in a more human-centred way. So we work a lot with public sector organisations, national bodies like the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services, Care Quality Commission, private providers of care and support services, doing quite a lot of work with public health in Greater Manchester at the minute, looking at different ways of how we engage with communities. And I know when people hear that language, they assume they know what that means. But again, we're very much experimenting with what it means to. Actually, somebody said to me in one of the workshops we did yesterday, how can we help communities to rebuild or repair or support themselves better if we're not prepared to do some of that work on ourselves first? So a lot of our work is challenging people's thinking and getting them to connect with their own experiences, and then apply that to what it is that does or doesn't work in relation to their business or whatever it is they're doing.
Okay, just to bring that to life a little bit, what might be a typical project that you have been involved in, or maybe your most impactful project you've been involved in so far, please, Kat?
So I think probably one of the most impactful ones is the work that I'm doing with Winning Hearts and Minds in North Manchester, mainly because I've been involved with it for quite a long time. So they commissioned me to support the programme over a 5-year period, sort of as and when was needed. But that was very much about recognising that in public health, for years and years and years, we've been doing the same thing over and over again with communities, but the health outcomes are not changing. So what is it that we need to do differently? And so one of the consultants in public health at that time was very brave in her decision to commission something different. And when we were engaging with the communities, and actually community members weren't coming in the early days, that was my opportunity to say, well, actually, this is why we need to do it differently. And now you need to just go out and find where people are and have those conversations with them. And it was a real light bulb moment for the senior managers and people who were thinking what this programme was going to be about at that time. And they went out and just found where people were, had conversations, learned stuff that they didn't really, think they needed to learn about why people weren't engaging with leisure services, or why the health outcomes, particularly around heart health and mental health, weren't improving. And on the back of that, we then decided we'd recruit a whole team of people to do that, essentially just go out and find where people were and talk to them and see what happened. And so we got permission to break the recruitment rules, if you like, in a bit of a pirate way. We were quite clever. We actually followed the official recruitment rules, but we made up our own set of rules alongside that. And we decided that we would recruit based on curiosity. We rewrote the job description. So we sent our own version out alongside the official one. And when people applied for the job, we shortlisted, and we officially should have shortlisted, I think, 7 people out of 30 plus applications. We shortlisted to about 21 based on curiosity, the people that we thought we wanted to speak to. We created some interactive workshops where we invited people in. People left the interviews saying, gosh, that was amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. I don't care whether I get the job or not, because I've had a really nice time and I've learnt loads. But what was interesting was we inadvertently recruited a really diverse team of people, and none of the people that we ended up recruiting, and it was 8 in one day, met the official criteria for the role. but they've been absolutely amazing. And even though there's been some changes in the team over the last couple of years, because people have developed the skills and moved on into other roles, as new people have come in, they've just slotted into something, and their reflections about what they've come into compared to previous jobs they've had are quite emotional, actually, in terms of the freedom people have. And on day one of them all being in post, we said, right now you can rip up the job description as well. And we're just sending you out to figure out what it is that the communities and the people need. Yeah, it's just been an amazing journey of lots of sort of magic moments and things that have emerged on the way. But what's been I suppose my role has been instrumental in helping the learning and the reflection as we go. So yes, they didn't have a job description to follow, but what was really important was bringing people together every few weeks or months to reflect on what's happened, what have you liked, lacked, learned and longed for, what's working, what's not working, where do we go with this next? And then every couple of years, we're analysing all that feedback, because it's all captured through pin boards and interactive workshops, and just seeing what the trends and the changes are. And out of that has evolved the Winning Hearts and Minds framework, and the behaviours, actually, not just the principles and values, but the behaviours that are really key to getting under the skin of what people and communities really need. So if you Google Winning Hearts and Minds, Be Brave report, it will come up, and you can read a bit about what we're doing.
And just give us a little bit more of a flavour. It sounds like it's a challenge in terms of coordinating different groups. What sort of stakeholder groups are involved in that type of project then? Apart from the public health people,
yeah,
what sort of other groups would be involved?
Yeah, so all sorts, really. I mean, one of the key things is for this programme is engaging with the communities. So we have now got what we've probably not brilliantly called a community reference group, but that is what it is, and we'll rebrand that eventually. But we are now getting 20 or 30 people regularly coming from community groups to meet with the team and talk about what needs to change in their communities or what they're doing, but also to network. And a fabulous WhatsApp group now with over 50 people on it from across North Manchester, and people are mixing from communities as well. So you've got people travelling from places like Cheetham to other areas of North Manchester where they've never been before. But yeah, absolutely, it's public health, it's the social prescribing people, it's how we engage with schools. They're doing some fantastic stuff, again, quite by accident, in the schools, and engaging with some of the young people, and surprising, actually, even the teachers in terms of what some of these young people can do and contribute to their communities and the school community. Police, fire service, faith organisations. So it's a really wide spectrum. There's no anybody who wants to get involved, basically, in the work and engage in it. And actually, over the next couple of years, we're hoping to we're just working through at the minute, take some of this across the GM moving space as well, which is part of Greater Sport. So it's a Greater Manchester wide movement of people who are working towards getting people more active. But there's a disconnect often between what they know in theory about engaging differently and people being able to go and do that freely in their communities. So we'll come in and again support building the bridges in that.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned the structure of your company. What is the, and I know the main driver is not kind of commercial, but what is the commercial model in with your business?
Interesting question, Ceri. I'm not sure that we've really thought it through a huge amount, and it is something that we are looking to kind of develop and think through. I think because most of it's been word of mouth, and because of what myself and the other directors have been involved with, people have seen what we're doing and they've said, will you come along and do something for us? I suppose one thing for us that's key is we're not a consultancy, so we're not coming in with some magic formula of answers that will help. We're not going to get alongside and help you to write a strategy that's going to solve all your problems. writing strategy is very much part of the process if that's what people want. But often what we end up doing, you know, for example, some work we did with ADAS in the East region, and I don't think we'll ever leave that region now. I'm tempted to relocate, but I'm not quite there yet. And ADAS is the Association of Directors of Adult Social Services. We were asked to do some consultation work on their market development priorities in social care. This is all very wonky language, but essentially it's how they do business in terms of providing the right sorts of services for people who access social care services as a region, and what that looks like. And we said, that's fine, we'll come and do that. It was a very, very small amount of money, but we're not going to do it in the way that you think you want it to be done. If you trust us enough, we'll do it in a way that we know will get you better results. So we worked a lot with gathering people's stories and getting people into online workshops where we just talked about what works, what doesn't work, what do you think of these priorities? And what was really interesting at the end of that was people didn't say the priorities are wrong or this is what needs to change about those priorities, which were essentially very practical things. What they said was the way that we experience how you deliver those priorities is really difficult for us. And that's what needs to change. So looking at the conditions that you're working with, how you relate to people as humans, how you involve people in decisions about their care and support, not making assumptions. And so building that human connection and human relationship into it. And that then led to us doing a whole series of Over a Brew workshops, which again are essentially just a very open space online for people across the whole region to come to, where we started with no agenda, actually, no particular topic, but we gave people lots of space in breakout rooms to talk about their experience of, I could use another wonky word, co-production, how they're working with people across the region to develop and provide care and support services. And over 6 months, the themes that emerged from session to session we worked with, and we reported all that back, and we've just been commissioned to do another 12 months of those for the region. But so that then links into their priority setting group, so that they're actually looking at what they action now on the back of those conversations. But it's very organic. We've not got a fixed idea of what people are going to talk about or they're going to bring. It's our role to listen and then reflect that back, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned being commissioned there. Who actually funds this, or do you access grants, or how does that work?
We haven't yet accessed any grant funding. People, so ADAS in that region, you know, pay us directly, local authorities. So yeah, we are mostly generating our own income at the minute. We would love to access grants. One of our fundamental core things is that wherever we go, we want to work with the people who have the direct lived experience of accessing services and support. So we have a network of people across the East region, but people in other parts of the country where we've worked as well, who we will make sure they're involved in the design and the delivery and the planning of whatever, you know, workshops or events that we're doing. So we did a big workshop for Norfolk County Council a few weeks ago, face to face with 50 people in a room. And again, complete range of people, from a director of social care right through to people who access services and support with a range of different abilities, learning disabilities, mental health, autism, physical disabilities, carers. And we had 3 or 4 people who we work with, you know, in terms of their lived experience, who facilitated alongside us and brought their experience and reflect back with us afterwards as well. So we make sure that we build that in terms of whatever we're bidding for. We do some competitive bidding, but we work very closely with another organisation called the Ideas Alliance, and they're much more set up for those much bigger bits of work. So we will come in and do part of that, and we'll contribute to that. And there is one lottery funded programme that I'm involved with, which is called Not Another Co-Production Project, which started in Greater Manchester. We're now working in the West Midlands, and next year we're heading off to Greater London. And that's an open invite actually to people. That's a support offer that is free at the point of delivery, because that's something that's been funded through the National Lottery. So I offer my time again on that on a salaried basis, but as and what you're doing the work as and when. And we're offering, free workshops, community reporter training, and which is the method by which we gather stories from people, and that's through People's Voice Media as part of that.
Okay. Well, we've been through quite a period of turmoil, including government changes, and I'm sure some of that has rippled down to create some challenges for you and your organisation, Cat. Just talk us through some of the implications and the challenges that has created for you.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest challenges are the messages that come nationally around and the challenges to public sector, particularly in social care. I mean, health as well. Although generally health, NHS is better funded, and the conditions and the pay that people get, even at the lower levels, are better. But some of the biggest challenges are working with organisations where they are really, really struggling to stay afloat, actually, and recruit, and they're firefighting continuously. So in social care, there's some fantastic work going on around supporting people as individuals in a really, really personalised way. But the pressure and the stress that staff feel working in those organisations is having a knock-on impact in terms of their ability to really connect with people in that human way. If you can imagine you're working in an organisation where you're constantly being told that you have to find savings and cuts and, not spend any more money on allowing people to live the lives that they really should be living, and then being able to interact with those people who need that support in a way that is empathetic and supportive, and get the results from them, it is incredibly challenging. So there's sensitivities for us. We have to be really acutely aware of, what people are dealing with. We really want to challenge and push people's thinking beyond the obvious challenges. So we use some kind of pirate activities, like a sabotage activity that we've created, where we will ask people who work in organisations to say, how would you go about sabotaging any attempts at helping people to live the life that they want and do the things that are important to them as independently as possible. And they throw loads of stuff at an online flinger board if we're online, or a pin board if we're face to face. And then we say to people, okay, you've written all these things down. What is it now on those post-it notes that you've written down that you are not currently doing at the minute? So you've imagined everything you would do to sabotage people living the life they want. I'm now asking you to look at what you've written down and take off the things that are not happening in your experience. And the reactions to that range from, oh, God, shit, like we're now faced with a whole load of barriers that we hadn't even, kind of connected with, to people nearly sort of falling off their chairs in horror when they realise that they've written loads of stuff around about making assessment processes difficult, not the tone of voice that they use, the fact that they arrange appointments for people, or they're not flexible about where people can meet. And so it moves people beyond just thinking, oh, the barriers are we haven't got enough funding and we haven't got enough time and resource, which is where people usually go, to really thinking, actually, you can make your life and your work much better and the experience of the people that you're supporting much better if we can bring it right back down to those micro moments, or those micro things that you have actually got a lot of control over, the things that you can change, your attitude, the way you talk to people, how you see the other person, not calling people a service user and actually calling them by their name, and those kinds of things. So, we talk a lot in this space about we need to scale and spread innovation at pace. And actually what we're saying to people is, we're not interested in you scaling and spreading your innovation at pace, because the minute you take your innovation from the conditions that you've created it in and try and implant it somewhere else, it won't work, because people aren't thinking in the same way. So actually what we want to do is scale it right down to the individuals and those micro things that need to change, as well as obviously, that challenge of needing to look at some of the bigger things. But often the savings come from that as well, really rethinking the way you do things on that one-to-one level, and that frees up resources in the system elsewhere. But it's hard. It's really hard for people, and they put a lot of trust in us to do that. It's not a standard way of consultants, for want of a better word, coming in and challenging you, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, what about moving to the future then, Kat? What aspirations do you have for Curators for Change? Where do you see it going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think, we'd like to continue to do more of the same. We're at capacity at the minute in terms of what we can do, but we're constantly working to develop people to take on some of the work. So while we're self-funding in a sense, being able to apply for some grants or to have some support to be able to invest more time in developing people to go off and do more of the work, that would be part of it. There are some amazing people out there who access service and support, who have that lived experience, but they're seen as people who don't necessarily have the same level of skill or talent, if you like, or knowledge as the people who work in the system. And yet actually give them the right support and the space, they can really flourish. I think it's our passion to really shift things from that very us and them way of thinking. We work in the system, you're the people who are supported. If we're talking about co-production, we're talking about how we produce a public sector offer together. And that's not without its challenges. So I think more of the same. I think we'd like to develop some, online support offers, courses and things. Courses isn't the right word. We don't like to use the training word, but it's that very much self-reflective space in the context of what people are doing, and to formalize a lot of what we do so we can at least put it out there and say, look, so actually people, what we don't want to do is grow ourselves to be so big that people become dependent, but how can we develop and resource other people to take what we do into other spaces? So I guess it's not very concrete answer, but we would just like more and more people to understand and appreciate what we do.
Okay.
Invest in that, yeah.
Okay. And in relation, clearly you work in a relatively complex system of various moving parts, Kat.
Yeah.
What would you say are your main lessons and reflections? What have you learned over the last 4 or 5 years, and what advice might you give yourself on that day one now that you've got the experience?
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that my experience and the experience of co-directors goes way beyond the 4 or 5 years into working previously. But I guess I'm someone who I've worked a lot in the public sector and in this kind of change space. I don't know why my brain works the way it does. It just does, but it's never made sense to me to be a program manager or a project manager. I always struggled with consultants coming into the organizations to do stuff, because I was there thinking, I can do that stuff. So why do we need to spend millions and millions of pounds on these people to come in and do what I'm already doing? And probably better, if I'm totally honest. But I had an ability to look at or reflect on what I was being asked to do in a local authority in terms of change and go, it doesn't really make sense to me to do it like that. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these people in a room together, and we're going to have a conversation together and see what emerges. And I ended up training as a facilitator on the back of that, because I recognised those were the skills that were necessary. So I think one of the things that I started to look at in terms of that complexity was, and I struggle when we talk about complexity, because I think the complexity in the systems is more about us as humans and people and our individuality and our uniqueness, rather than the complexity of the systems, because I think systems are often seemingly straightforward on paper. The problem is when you apply a standard system to lots of different human beings and individuals, then you hit that barrier of complexity, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach in terms of how we should be supporting people. So for us, it's much what I learned over the years and what we've learned, increasingly through the work we've done with Curators of Change, is that actually if we can simplify things in our mind and not create really complex workshops and models and ways of doing things and solutions and offers, and help people to really recognize that it's much more about how they relate to other human beings. There's a lot of psychology in it, actually, although we don't really talk in those terms with people, is then it becomes much easier. And again, it's not without challenge, because we're in a market, if you like, of lots of different organizations who are constantly, marketing themselves with particular tools, or, assessment frameworks, or, come and do this. We can help you culture map, or whatever it is. And that seems that's attractive to people. But what we don't want to do is fall into that space of saying, we can come and help you map this and map that and solve this and solve that, because actually we really want to, develop that in a way. So I think day one for us would be, I think, we are really confident in terms of what we know can make a difference, and we just need to stick to that. And there's a temptation to want to get distracted into lots of different things. And I mentioned as in our preamble that we don't even have a website yet. That is something that we're really we're working on at the minute. It's beginning to fall into that important and urgent box, if you like, because more and more people, and we've got people we want to show. We've got stuff that we want to show the world in terms of what we've done and what we've achieved, because we've got lots of resources and lots of stories and of change and things that we've developed, that we do want to share with people. So yeah, I think we have got we're learning continuously. And actually, if we created a website 5 years ago, it would have looked very different to what we would create now, and that kind of thing. But there's a point at which you just have to do it. So yeah, okay. I don't know if I've even answered your question there, but
well, it's been great to hear your story. Apart from maybe web designers, if any of the people watching this Business Spotlight interview, Cat, what sort of people would you like to have any follow-up conversations with? And you mentioned you don't have a website at the moment, so what's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Yeah, we are on LinkedIn. That's early days, and active on Twitter. So you'll find us there if you search Curators of Change. And so they're good forums to get in touch with us. hello@curatorsofchange.com. Just drop us an email. We're genuinely really happy to talk with anybody who's curious to understand a little bit more about what we're doing. Obviously, we're really keen in terms of who we are as people and our experience. Some of our directors have long-standing experience of, health and care services, physical health, mental health, as carers, supporting family members, that kind of thing. So obviously, our passion is public sector health and social care. But honestly, we're really happy to talk to anybody who would be interested in understanding how what we do might help make a difference in terms of, perhaps rehumanizing their organization or what they do, or having just a little bit of a different look at what they do. And that might lead to coming and getting involved in some of the work that we're doing. Or, we could also, depending on how those conversations go, offer, short workshops just to experience some of what it is that we do and see what that leads to. So, yeah, we really like talking to people. Okay. Well,
I'll certainly add that.
Interested. Yeah.
I'll add that email address onto the notes or the posts associated with this video. Cat, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time and your input, and all the very best with Curators for Change.
Thank you, Ceri. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today as well. Thank you.